the ability to understand information deeply and also at a very fast rate, and also being able to store it longer in memory without having to review it frequently, is very much dependent on how well you encode the information as you are learning it for the very first time. Now, so one of the techniques that you can use for proper encoding of information as you are learning is what is called inquiry-based learning, and that is what I'm going to be talking about in this video. And if you think that is something which is helpful, then just stick around. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now if you are new here, hi, my name is Simon, a medical student at the University of Zambia. Now if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to this channel and also give me a like. Now that takes like milliseconds, just do it, just tap on the subscribe button and thumbs up. Yeah, so without wasting any more time, let's get back to the topic for today. So to start with, the question which you should ask is, what is inquiry-based learning and how exactly does it facilitate proper encoding? So inquiry-based learning is basically learning with the sole purpose of solving a particular problem or answering certain questions. So in other words, I could say it is the kind of learning that is facilitated or rather spearheaded with a brain that is in problem-solving mode, or basically a curious mind. So now, why exactly does inquiry-based learning facilitate proper encoding? Now the reason for this is quite simple actually. It's because the human brain basically learns naturally in inquiry-based learning. So that kind of learning is the kind of learning that happens in our day-to-day life outside of formal education. So like, this is the kind of learning that babies have. No wonder babies are able to learn really quickly and learn a lot of things in a short period of time. That's because they have a very, very curious mind. Now that is exactly what we want to apply to our academics, because most of the time the kind of learning that we try to apply to formal learning is basically some kind of artificial, like we just try to throw information in our brains hoping that it sticks and be able to reproduce it on paper when we are writing an exam. Now that is not efficient because you forget a lot. The other reason as to why inquiry-based learning facilitates proper encoding is because it emphasizes the issue of relevance. You know, the brain is made in such a way that it only keeps information which is relevant, because if the information is not relevant, why exactly are you even learning it in the very first place? So usually the way we learn, we do not emphasize relevance, but when you are learning using inquiry-based learning, already the brain is aware that the information that is coming is useful to solve a particular problem or to answer certain questions. So instantly the brain absorbs the information and retains it longer because it knows that the information you're learning is very, very much relevant. Now I believe the definition of inquiry-based learning was really something which was very easy to understand. Now the question is, how exactly do we apply it practically into our day-to-day studies? That is what I'm going to be talking about. Now I have to mention, inquiry-based learning is not necessarily a technique per se. It is more of a principle or a skill, basically a way of thinking. Now you can use a lot of techniques using the same principle of inquiry-based learning, depending on the resources you have, depending on how comfortable you are with this, depending on how long you've been using inquiry-based learning, because other techniques can be a little bit more advanced and will be overwhelming to people that are starting. But in this video I'm going to talk about some of the practical ways that you can use for anybody, even people who know what inquiry-based learning, in case you've not heard of the technique that I'm going to be talking about. Also for those people who basically are learning of inquiry-based learning for the very first time. So this is something that you can apply to your studies and make sure that you skyrocket your efficiency. Okay, so to make this as logical as possible, I'm going to talk about the things which you can do before you get into the study session to facilitate inquiry-based learning, and the things that you do as you are studying. Now I also have to mention that inquiry-based learning is not only used when you're studying, as in that's the natural way of learning. So you can use it as you are listening to a class or a lecture or even a tutorial video on YouTube. You can be in the same kind of mindset of inquiry-based learning to make sure that you are learning as optimally as possible. So the first thing you do in inquiry to facilitate inquiry-based learning is priming. Now I've talked about priming before on this channel. I think it is on the video on the basic skills that are going to save you a lot of time. You should check that out if you have not seen that video. Now sometimes I struggle to define what priming really is. So to explain exactly what priming is, let me use this analogy. Like for those people who have done gardening before, you understand that when you just pour water on dry land without doing anything to it, you just pour water on dry land, of course the water is going to sink, but most of it is going to run off. So it's going to spread, and it's going to sink, but it's going to spread basically. However, if you till the land, when you pour water on it, most of the water will be contained in the area that you tilled, and it is going to sink much faster, and basically it is even going to go deeper. So what priming does is similar to tilling of the land before you actually pour water. So basically you are preparing your brain to absorb information as fast as possible, as deeply as it can, and to hold it. So basically what priming does is to put you in a mindset where you have got a lot of questions, and also put you in a mindset which is in a problem solving mode, so that all the information that is coming at you, all the information that you are learning either from a class or studying from a book, is very, very much relevant and is going to be used directly to solve those problems and to answer those questions. That is how learning happens actually, and that is how you're going to encode the information better, because it is going to be organized, because it is not just information coming at you randomly. It is information that has got an importance or purpose already. So it is information which is gotten and used instantly. So basically, what do you do when priming? Priming is relatively simple if you do it right. Basically what you have to do is get the material you have to study. It can be from lecture slides or it can be from notes. Just try to look at the headings, look at the diagrams, look at the words in bold, the main ideas. So what you're trying to do from this is just to get the main idea. And when you get the main idea, you ask yourself questions. Why is this important? When you ask yourself that question and you ask, how is this big concept related to this one? Or how do they affect each other? What causes which, and what happens when one is not there? Those are kinds of questions which seem to be trivial, but that is exactly how the brain wants to learn, and that is how exactly the brain learns in the natural way actually. It is not just pumping in information and hoping that it sticks by chance. And if you're just doing priming for the first time, you can even write the questions down. As you look at the main ideas, you can write a couple of questions, and it's important to ask high yield questions. So you don't want questions that basically are going to spearhead memorization of definitions, like, okay, what is this? No. You want to ask, why does this happen? Why is it important? What is the purpose of me learning what I'm learning? So basically you are inducing curiosity, and you're also making the brain be in a mode of problem solving. Another thing you can do as you are priming, so go through some pre-made questions. You can go through some past paper questions, or for the purpose of priming, I think the most ideal are just practice questions at the end of the chapter questions. Most textbooks will have some kinds of end of chapter question. So when you look at those end of chapter questions, your brain instantly already has questions in the mind. The brain does not like to be in suspense, so it already has questions. So the moment you come across a certain idea of importance, your brain goes like, oh, so that's the answer to that question, so that's why that happens, so that's why that's important. Those realizations are what facilitates learning. That is the natural way of learning, and that is how you can implement it to your formal academics. Now let's talk about the things that you do as you are actually into the study session or learning in class, to make sure that inquiry-based learning is still the mode of learning that you are implementing. Now you have to make sure that you make a conscious effort to continuously ask questions, as to why things happen, as to why things are the way they are. Because the inquiry-based learning, guys, is not very comfortable. It's a harder way of learning, but the most efficient. So it's very normal for you to try to drift away from it, because you basically want to just passive reading. Basically you just want to start reading through the whole material. So you have to catch yourselves in those moments and make sure that you're continuously asking yourselves why the things you are learning are important. Now guys, I had stated earlier that inquiry-based learning is basically a principle, and so I'm not going to overwhelm this video with a lot of techniques that you can use for inquiry-based learning. I'm just going to leave it here to keep it as simple as possible, to make sure that it can be implemented there and then. This is something which you can implement there and then, and just be aware that inquiry-based learning is a way of thinking which you have to get used to. It is not something which just happens. Although it is a natural way of learning, it is something that most of us try to run away from because it is basically harder to do actually. So you have to be diligent in applying these things, and the more you use inquiry-based learning, even the nature of your questioning, the quality of your questioning improves. So there are a lot of other techniques that you can use, but these are the simple ones for now, which are going to make a very huge difference if you implement them right away. Again, if you've forgotten, remember to subscribe to this channel, and also like and also comment down in the comment section below about what you think about inquiry-based learning and some of the other techniques that you think we can benefit from. Alright guys, see you next time.